Alright guys, here is my review after a short ride with the Hornet SP. The Hornet SP is actually a pretty decent and pretty good bike, especially for the price that it costs, but it definitely has its own flaws. You know, when I was riding the Honda SP, I couldn't really notice anything special about the bike or something that was really standing out, but that's okay. It's just an all-round bike. Brakes are pretty good. The chassis is okay. Something I didn't like about the chassis though was the combination of the suspension and the rear shock. The front suspension of the Hornet SP is actually the exact same suspension that is also found in a normal Hornet. But in the rear, we've actually got an Öhlins TTX 36 shock. And if I'm being honest, the combination of these two components didn't really feel as harmonious as it should feel like, in my opinion. The TTX 36 shock is just leagues above the front suspension, and I don't really understand why Honda has put the same suspension from the normal Hornet into the Hornet SP. I'm pretty sure that most people know this, but I'm just gonna say it anyways. Honda has actually put out two models of the Hornet. In this video I have rode the Hornet SP. There is a normal Hornet and there is an SP model. The main difference between these two is actually that the Hornet SP has got upgraded Brembo brakes and exhaust valve that gives a bit more horsepower and a bit more torque, and that the SP model has got a Öhlins TTX 36 rear shock, as I have already said. So we've got upgraded brakes, we've got a better shock, and we've got a couple more horsepower and a couple more Newton meters of torque. But the thing that I don't really understand is, why did they leave the normal suspension in there that is also found in the base model? Don't get me wrong guys, the bike is gonna be more than enough for most riders out there, but for me personally, I would have wished for more performance, especially for the fact that it is named an SP model. As I've already said, the combination of the rear shock and the front suspension doesn't feel 100% right to me. The thing is that the front suspension just has a lot of movement, especially when you brake hard into corners and trail brake hard into corners. The front is starting to feel a little bit weird, a little bit sluggish, and just a little bit woody. It just feels like the front tire is floating in front of you somewhere where you can't get a hold of it. The brakes, they're pretty okay though. The harder you pull, the more performance you will get out of them. Again, more than enough for most people, but for me personally, the first initial feel of the brake isn't aggressive enough. When you first touch the brake, it feels really soft and just a bit woody. But that's actually not as bad, because you could just switch the brake pump and then you would actually get a lot better first initial bite that will be a lot more aggressive. The electronics of the bike were pretty decent though. You can switch between multiple riding modes, and you can also configure your own riding modes, which are called user mode. In the user mode, you can actually configure your throttle response, your traction control, and your engine brake. The bike doesn't have a separate wheelie control, which means that traction control and wheelie control are tied together. So if you want to wheelie the bike, you would have to turn off the traction control completely. That is also the reason why the traction control has cut off power really aggressively in the clips that you have seen before. The engine of the bike, it could have been a bit stronger, especially at low and mid RPM, but when you actually ride it in high RPMs, you get pretty good power. At the end of the day, I can tell you guys that the Hornet SP is still a pretty good bike, especially for people who want a lot of power for not a lot of money, because if we're being honest, where can you get that type of power for that amount of money? Thanks for watching the video, and let me know your opinion in the comments, guys. Until then, see you next time.